Welcome to the Ravens Loft. I'm Nick, and you know what? Something's been bugging me, and I wanted to do a bit of a deep dive into it, and I wanted to take you on a journey with me as we kind of explore what Jujutsu Kaisen is all about. What is this story about? So, Jujutsu Kaisen, which, by the way, try saying that 5 times fast. Jujutsu Kaisen, It sounds like you're sneezing. Why did they name it that? Okay, all jokes aside. Jujutsu Kaisen has become super popular and has garnered a lot of attention and a very dedicated fan base. Have you talked to them? They are very dedicated. But when you think of the series and what it's about, it's kind of weird, right? Like, I'm not the only one that thinks that. Like, overall, the series kind of has a weird motive to it. Like, what is it even about? When you think of other anime series like Naruto, for example, we can get right to what the main character is about. It's about Naruto, and he wants to become Hokage someday, but the actual series themes and motifs all deal with the idea of acceptance and friendship, and fighting for those you love and care about. Pretty normal, typical stuff if you ask me. But Jujutsu Kaisen isn't your typical anime or story. It's weird.
You believe in the power of a curse?
But like in a cool way, not like that, that weird kid in class that like dresses it all up and he's just weird and he's over there giggling. Anyways, it's not weird like that. So how did something so weird like Jujutsu Kaisen catch on? What the heck is this even all about? Well, let's take a moment here and let's kind of dissect it for a second. Let's get into the inner. Let's take it apart and let's figure it out. So this got me asking this question. Is the theme and the story of Jujutsu Kaisen deeper than it's given credit for? I know a lot of it is it's focused on the fights and people are really excited about Gojo and all that stuff, but with shonen, it's all about the action. A bunch of dudes punching each other in the face. Okay, jokes aside, anyone that's a fan of shonen knows that's not true, and not a whole lot of credit is given to the stories or themes in the shonen genre, or storytelling and what it is, its category. But any fan knows that that just isn't true. Many shonens can have some crazy stories that deal with deep, numerous, subtle things, but that's normally not what they focus on. I like to think I know a thing or two about crazy action stories featuring supernatural elements. Demon hunters pop up, such as Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter, fighting demons with a chainsaw, which you can pick up on Amazon at any point. Okay, you didn't come here to hear me show my books, but I gotta pay those bills, right? All right, so let's get back to Jujutsu Kaisen. Starts out fairly normal, but gives a small hint of its theme and plot at the very beginning. The death of Yuji's grandfather sets the stage, but is so quick and glossed over, you could easily miss it. It comes, it goes, it's here, it's there. It really just kind of sets up the place for us to be introduced to Yuji and his place in all of this. This idea that you leave behind, of when you leave behind and what you're leaving behind, like what you're leaving behind you, how things are after you go, is subtly touched upon, but not really given a whole lot of focus, attention, yada yada yada. But when Yuji bites down and swallows that disgusting finger, which aside from the story, who does that? I don't know. We're just getting to know this character, but holy cow, that really tells you about the character. Oh, this could give me powers. I'm just going to chomp down on this gross and demonic finger. No thought put into it at all. Just like my dog over there with a nasty bone. And who decides that's a good idea? Okay, rambles aside here. Yuji has no clue how this action that saves all those people in that moment and sets the course for disaster and countless death afterwards. Sure, he saved some folks, but unwillingly sentenced millions to die as well after that. If you think about it, there is something conflicting about the idea of trying to save others and how that can lead to destruction. Good intentions don't always lead to good results. This is kind of a common thing that keeps coming up in Jujutsu Kaisen, is asking, this idea of saving tons, if it means more die later on, can you deal with that sort of guilt on you? It's a huge setup, and it's something that's brought up really early on, which unfortunately the series does bring into light later. See, Gojo knows the deal. Yuji needs to go before Sukuna can take over and bring back the Age of Darkness or whatever. I got bored and started glancing off. No, I'm joking. Aside, it's clear that the fate of these characters were not fully understood. Keeping Yuji alive and try to use the most dangerous sorcerer even as a tool weapon for their own benefit. What sort of problems could arise from that? How little did they know this would be their very downfall and bring about the end of everything. Death is a constant theme in Jujutsu Kaisen. But for other aspects that is brought up that should be touched upon is the discussion of the soul. That is where we need to focus on Mahito and his character arc as he comes to discover what is the purpose of a soul. Okay, so for me as a Christian that believes in heaven, this topic is something I love to explore and discuss. It's rare to see a series tackle it well and bring something to the table that proves something out of question. See, Mahito, although immature and selfish, comes to a conclusion that the soul comes before the body. His cursed power thing, whatever you call it, derives from manipulating it. I think, please don't scream at me. I kind of get mixed up in some of these power capabilities here. There's a lot going on, and I'm mostly focused on the story things here. And so Mahito is capable of changing its form, manipulating it, and turning it with deforming the person. Personally, that is something I was really interested to explore, and I wanted to know more of based upon my own faith. And what is this idea of the soul being changed and turned around, that it turns the body into a grotesque husk and deforms the person? Is the soul just a form of energy? Now, if I remember right, Kenjaku refutes this claim, saying the soul and body are the same. Oh, hold up here now. We've got something kind of fun going on here, which, we could dive further into with the emotions and how they give way to the creation of the curses themselves, from the residue of negative emotions pouring out of sorcerers, which Jogo claimed made them true humans, since they were pure form of them, which, set on their whole entire trajectory and what they wanted to talk about, setting up the events of everything. Now, if you think further on all of this, Mahito stands in contrast to Kenjaku with his body-hopping brain-looking thing. What the heck is that deal anyways? Like, it's gross, it's cool or something? I don't know. It's just really weird. Again, another thing that makes Jujutsu Kaisen weird. It's not afraid to go in those places. So Kenjaku is able to take over the body without deforming it. But I don't recall when he takes over if it replaces a soul or overpowers it. Has the series even dug into that part yet? I don't know if we've even gotten to that part where they explain his ability to body hop and take over certain people. We don't even fully understand his whole entire plan. That's a video for a different day, though. Okay, so there is an inner commentary being played out here where I'm looking too deep into this story. But the way it looks to me is there is a conversation of how the soul works and how these two abide by messing with it, which we could even look further with the case of Yuji and Sukuna, how one vessel houses two souls fighting for control. Sukuna waiting dormantly, abiding through a contract he made early on in the series, which brings us back to the beginning of this whole entire discussion. Yuji eating that finger and the death sentence that was placed upon him, housing the most dangerous and malevolent being to have ever walked the earth, who is responsible for the worst atrocities of this series. I mean, the Shibuya arc alone sets up with how dangerous Sukuna is and the very things that he is capable of doing. It sets in stone that earlier conversation of, if you're willing to save a few people now, what if that means other people dying later on? Sukuna coming back into fold within the Shibuya arc really kind of brought that into full view here of, oh man, was it worth saving him and using him as a weapon for your own benefit if it brought about all of these atrocities, this catastrophe? Sukuna's soul is able to dwell in others. We see him perform a ritual that gives Sukuna overwhelming control so he may obtain complete control over the vessel. So there is no chance they will fight back, not as the body, but as the soul. That part stood out the most for me, is that they're not worried about the body trying to fight back. They're worried about the soul coming back to fight him in the body he's trying to take over. The part that may have answered a small question I had of my own, and maybe will intrigue you as well. This ritual was to further submerge Fushiguro Megami's sense of self, as they state at first, but correct it into being his soul. As you can see in this dialogue line here, they talk about sense of self, but in reality then they say, oh, it's his will, which, okay, are the soul and the will, are they two of the same things? How does the soul operate? Okay, so sinking it further into evil, a process to break one's will, to destroy it to the point where it no longer can operate. It's a small and quick line that we end up moving on from, but it stuck out to me. So if Kenjaku was correct that the body and soul were one, then this must prove him wrong if Sukuna can take over a body and force the soul to wither into nothing as he takes it over. But maybe there is some truth to Kenjaku's statement. For Sukuna to retain his control, all his fingers must have been consumed, right? Like he can't just be in that vessel without his body being consumed as well. But he could only gain full control of them, not just with a few. So maybe there is some truth to this. Maybe there's a balance. Maybe there's a middle ground that we're missing here. Could Megami retain control and come back as long as it's with his own body? And are we seeing the results of that being set up in the story? Is Megami possibly going to override Sukuna at some point here? I'm curious, and I'm waiting until next year to find out as well. So in the end, I really have no clue, and I feel like we got closer, but with even more questions now. Maybe I'm looking too far into this and it's not that deep, but maybe you're like me and enjoy this little question and discussion that keeps popping up throughout the story from time to time. This conversation of, is it the soul, is it the body, is it one and the same? Is Kenjaku right? Is Mahito right? How does Sukuna and Yuji's whole entire plight here, how does that deal out with now? How does Megami play into it all? See, I know many of the fans have gotten into this series because of the fights, the power levels, who is stronger than who, the technical aspects of the fights, how people are using their domains. A lot of that stuff is really important to like what the overall discussion is about this series. But I feel like if you're missing something if you don't take a moment to look at this little story that's being seeded throughout the whole entire thing and how it's being told. This whole entire subject aspect of what is the soul, it plays a really large narrative part to the story, but it's pieced around all these really cool battles and these really cool characters that are actually asking this question, and we're seeing it played out through the fights and how things are happening. And then there is this whole question of when the granny forced Toji Fushiguro into one of her kids' bodies. But it was from a certain time in his life, and how about this when Yuta and his childhood friend Rika being turned into a cursed spirit? Did I get that right? Because she was then, trying to curse him, and then they took off the spirit. Okay, that's a video for another time, and a topic we'll have to explore a little bit later, which I think we will. But I think this just goes to show how much there is to Jujutsu Kaisen, and just how it's not just about people throwing punches at each other, screaming. It's got a lot to it. There's a lot more in depth on it. So those of us that are fans of shonen, of this series, you already know this. This isn't new. I'm not saying anything new here, but it really goes to show how much more there is to this series and what it's got going for it. And I think this is one of the reasons why you should pick it up. I think this is one of the reasons that it's so fun. Amid all these things that are happening, there's this fun little story being told about the soul and these characters and, fighting about it. So, Jujutsu Kaisen plays fast and loose with its cast. Characters can have a short lifespan, which feels natural and realistic to the idea of like what they're up against. These are sorcerers going up against demonic forces. And, it makes this sort of job a threat. Not just a Saturday morning cartoon where the hero is going to win. There are no guarantees here. The heroes, in fact, are losing and big. If you asked me, I would guess that this could end with the villain winning, but in the end, I have no clue. I just don't know. But anyways, if you like this video, if you are a fan of Jujutsu Kaisen, sound off below, let me know. We're going to do some more deep dives. We're going to talk more about Jujutsu Kaisen and some other supernatural stuff on this YouTube channel. But if you are also looking for some more fun books, you want to check out some stuff that, again, has Winnie the Pooh fighting demons with a chainsaw, go check us out on Amazon, sign up on Patreon, help support the channel. You have a good rest of your day. Thanks.